Rain slammed against the Philadelphia subway car windows like 1,000 tiny fists as the train screeched through the underground tunnel. The fluorescent lights above flickered for a moment, casting brief shadows over the tired faces inside. Among them sat a man in his early 30s, his clothes slightly worn but neatly pressed, his eyes heavy but gentle. Jamal, a single dad, a janitor, a man who had learned to carry burdens without complaint. He clutched a small brown lunchbox and a drawing from his 6-year-old daughter, Aisha, folded neatly in his jacket pocket, her crayon words still fresh.
"You're my hero, Daddy."
He didn't know it yet, but today the world was about to test those words. A few seats away, a woman gasped sharply and doubled over, clutching her stomach. Passengers looked, then quickly looked away, everyone too immersed in their own exhaustion or fear to move. She was heavily pregnant. Her white dress was soaked from the rain, her face pale. Another contraction hit, and this time she screamed, a sound so raw it silenced the entire car. The train rumbled on, indifferent to the life or death moment unfolding inside. Before we go deeper into the story, if you believe in the power of kindness, in second chances, and in the good still left in this world, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Gentle Grove. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories like this to the world. Jamal didn't think he moved. In a flash, he dropped his lunchbox, slid across the subway floor, and knelt beside her. "It's okay," he whispered, wiping sweat from her brow with a handkerchief. "You're not alone." She was panicking, unable to speak clearly, breathing erratically. He gently coached her through the contractions, shielding her from the cold floor with his own jacket. The other passengers watched, some recording, none helping. The subway train had no conductor on this car, and no one seemed to know what to do, except Jamal, whose hands had never delivered a baby before, but whose heart refused to let this woman suffer alone. He whispered comforting words, using everything he'd learned from raising Aisha alone. Those sleepless nights, those cries he had soothed, those tiny moments when he had doubted himself, but he kept going. As the contractions intensified, the woman screamed again, grabbing his hand so tightly it turned pale. Time stood still. The train rattled beneath them like an angry heartbeat. Then, in one powerful, primal moment, a newborn's cry pierced the silence. A healthy baby girl. Jamal held the tiny infant in his arms, trembling, his eyes wide with awe and relief. The mother collapsed back, crying from both pain and joy. The passengers clapped hesitantly. A few stepped forward finally to offer help. Jamal wrapped the baby in his jacket, careful like he used to with Aisha's doll just to make her giggle. "You did it," he told the woman, not knowing how much those 3 words would come back to haunt him. When the train finally stopped at the next station, paramedics rushed in. The woman was taken away gently, her baby in her arms. She turned to look at Jamal once. Her lips parted to speak, but then her head fell back from exhaustion, and she was wheeled out. Jamal didn't even get her name. The next few days returned to normal, or so he thought. Jamal went back to mopping floors at the corporate building he worked in. He made Aisha's lunch, braided her hair, and kissed her forehead at school drop-off. But deep down, the moment on that train kept replaying in his mind. Her face, that baby, that feeling that something was unfinished. 3 days later, everything changed. He was scrubbing the marble floors of the executive lobby when he heard heels clicking toward him. He stood to let the woman pass, but instead she stopped. It was her, but she wasn't in pain this time. She wore a sharp, elegant black suit, her hair perfectly done, and security guards flanked her on either side. Her eyes locked with Jamal's, and for a moment neither spoke. Then she walked up slowly, holding a baby carrier in her hand, and said softly, "You're the man who delivered my daughter." Jamal was stunned. He looked at her, blinking. You work here." She gave a bittersweet smile. "No, I own this company. My husband is the CEO. I'm Isabella Vance." It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The same man who signed Jamal's paycheck. The same man whose office he had cleaned every Friday night while Aisha waited for him at home with leftover mac and cheese. He had delivered his boss's child on a grimy subway floor without ever knowing. Isabella explained that she had gone out against her doctor's advice that day. She needed fresh air, space from the high-rise, from the pressure, from being known only as the CEO's wife. When her labor began early, she had no one nearby except a stranger whose heart was stronger than any job title. What happened next shocked Jamal more than the moment on the subway. Isabella and her husband invited him into their office, not to scold him, not to reprimand him for speaking to her, but to thank him genuinely, deeply, emotionally. The CEO, once cold and distant in Jamal's eyes, now shook his hand with both of his and said, "You didn't just save my daughter's life. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That real strength comes from humility." They offered to pay him. Jamal refused, but instead they did something better. They gave him a full scholarship, not for himself, but for Aisha. Her future education fully funded. They promoted him within the company, giving him a role in facilities management with flexible hours, a job with dignity, a job that let him be more present for his daughter. Isabella even became something of a mentor to Jamal, inviting him occasionally to speak at the company's charity events, sharing his story as a reminder that humanity still mattered. But Jamal never let it go to his head because he knew that heroism wasn't about recognition. It was about being there when no one else would, about stepping up when the world steps back. And that little baby girl he delivered, they named her Hope. If this story touched your heart, made you believe again in unseen heroes, or reminded you that kindness still matters, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Gentle Grove. Let's spread light in a world that desperately needs it. Tell us in the comments, what's one moment when a stranger changed your life in an unexpected way? We read every story, and your words inspire millions.